Hey, it's No Driving Gloves on Thursday, June 5th, 2025. Unfortunately, it's going to be a short one tonight. It's just me. Topic I'm jumping into is one that I've been preparing for a while and I'm not quite done. So we're going to see how it rolls. It's going to be a little bit of a short show. Dave had to step away this evening. His son's graduating high school. And hey, I think we all know that that only happens once and we can let him go for that. And Derek, he has a real job playing with cars. And as we've recently talked about in some episodes, he's got a project that has to ship tomorrow and the project's not cooperating and don't think he's going to make it tonight. So I'm going to do one of my little shows. I think the last one the last one I did like this, I think I did on Elon Musk and his history, not how great he was or how bad he is or Tesla's the thing. But I think I put one together on Elon Musk where we just went through the companies he's owned and the things that he's done and was very well received. So tonight, we're going to talk some numbers. One number that I found interesting that I discovered this week, because we don't label shows with episode numbers anymore, just mainly because of the YouTube and things like that. Maybe I need to go back and change some of the audio podcast titles and throw the numbers back in them. But this is episode 402. Could not believe that Derek and I have done 400 plus episodes. Will was there for the first couple hundred. Dave's been around for the last 40 or 50. I think we had Sean Yoder there in the middle for 40 or 50 episodes. It's a grueling pace. It takes a lot out. The audio podcasts, as I've been promising, if you do subscribe to our audio feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts at, Overcast, the audio podcasts are going back up. So if you need to hear this in your car or such, hopefully those are going to roll out more regularly. Still might be a little bit of a bulk upload, but they're going to get out there and they're going to be released to the week corresponding with the YouTube video. But I just could not believe we were 400 plus episodes into this. Derek, I, and Will started doing this July of 2017. A lot has happened in those, say, 8-9 years, whatever. It's been a lot. It's been fun. It's had its ups and downs. We've wanted to walk away before. We've always stuck it out. We always get through those little low points. It's kind of like road construction or traffic. God, it's dragging. I just don't want to do this anymore. But we're here. I think we've been hitting almost every week, and that's one reason I wanted to try to at least do a 15-minute show tonight, is to chat. And one of the inspirations for this whole thing, where I started my research a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know which podcast I was listening to, and we all know I listen to some various car podcasts and other topics. Somebody made the statement that the revenue from Ferrari is more than 4 or 5 manufacturers combined. And I just couldn't believe that number. And I think Ford was thrown into that group, and that just doesn't work. The number I've pulled up, Ford's annual revenue, these are based on 2024 numbers. So it's about as recent as we can get, and only publicly traded companies. So I can't dive into Bugatti, and Aston Martin doesn't give all of their numbers. But Ford in 2024 did $158 billion in revenue. Of that $158 billion in revenue, $12.2 billion was profit. That was on selling 2.45 million cars total. I guess 4 or 5 of that was probably F-150s, 2 million of everything else. With an average price, believe it or not, of $68,000 per vehicle to come up with those numbers. So obviously we're talking some $2 million Ford GTs, maybe a lot of $100,000 trucks. I'm not quite sure how that breaks down, but when you take that revenue number and you divide it out by 2.4 million, we come up with $68,812 or $612. So it's a substantial amount of money. And comparing that to Ferrari, well, Ferrari only in 2024 on sales of 13,653 cars. That's probably as many cars, more than as many cars as it was built in Enzo Ferrari's life. But on those 13,000 and change, they did $7.3 billion in revenue. And that resulted in $1.6 billion in profit. So more than 10% of Ford's profit, or basically Ford does 12.2 and Ferrari does 1.6. Ferrari's getting a lot more return on their cars. There's some profitability there because the average selling price of a Ferrari, $534 to $90, according to these numbers. So the numbers are just astronomical. And Toyota, of course, leads the pack, doing $301 billion in revenue, $32.8 billion in net income, which is still, what is that going to be? More than Ferrari's still going to be more than a couple of percent of that. But Toyota sells 10,300,000 cars worldwide with an average price of $29,233. So, Toyota, they're more of an everyman's car than Ford. Throwing it back to that's more than double what General Motors did in 2024. And General Motors had an average selling price of $58,000 a car. But what really drove me to start doing some research tonight, and I'm glad I did because of the absences of some of the hosts, I heard on, and it was a Smoking Tire today, was talking about it it might have been today's episode or one just in the last week or so. I'm not sure where I'm at and listening to good old Matt. They said something to the numbers on Volkswagen Group that the combined sales of Bentley and Lamborghini are only like 10% of Volkswagen sales, Volkswagen Group sales, but account for 60% of the profit. I did not believe that number, but I went ahead and ran the numbers. And I know this is hard to get audio wise and listen, throw some numbers, but you'll remember the key numbers here. Volkswagen Group is the second largest manufacturer in the world based on volume and revenue numbers. Toyota, of course, did 10.3 million cars last year. Volkswagen Group sold 9 million cars last year, creating revenue of $348.4 billion. I keep looking at all my zeros here on my note screen, and yeah, that's a lot. They only had net income of that of $17.9 billion, which if you really look at it, they did more than double what Ford did, but only made $5 billion more dollars on that. Of course, average selling price of a Volkswagen, $38,711. So, and it's really weird because number 3 is going to be Hyundai at $127.4 billion in revenue, almost $220 billion less than Volkswagen Group. Volkswagen Group gets $17.9 billion in net income, where Hyundai Group got 13.3. So for doing a third of the work, Hyundai only missed Volkswagen by $4 billion. Only $4 billion. 4.1 million cars sold, $31,000 average price. But getting back to that Lamborghini and Bentley portion of the Volkswagen Group sales, it actually comes out to, when you take Lamborghini did $3.4 billion and Bentley did 3.37. So we'll say 3.4 billion. They each did equal amounts of revenue generation, so $6.8 billion. Between the two of them, Lamborghini sold 10,112 cars, and Bentley sold 13,560 cars. Bentley got an average of 248 per car, and Lamborghini got an average of 338 per car. Lamborghini brought in $910 million in net revenue, and Bentley brought in $607 million in net revenue, coming out to, what is that going to be? 1.7 billion in revenue, or in income, excuse me, 1.7 billion in income compared to the 17.9 billion that Volkswagen Group, which means basically it's 1.9% of Volkswagen Group's net that's why can't I think? That's 8% of Volkswagen's net income. Actually 8.5% of Volkswagen's net income is because of two manufacturers, Lamborghini and Bentley, who only sold basically 23,000 of the 9 million cars, or basically 0.2%, 2.26, I will say 0.3% of Volkswagen Group's sales were these two manufacturers, but it accounted for 9% of the net income and 2% of the overall revenue. So when they say there's no markup in these exotics, if you watch Ed Bullion on VinWiki, he tells some stories about, the Aston Martin, we had some heavy discounts available and we could do this and we can do that. They're still not losing money. Don't feel bad for the dealer, at least based on these numbers that I've researched and put together. And some of this is Googling, some of this is trying to look at some of the reports from the manufacturer, some of this is utilizing my new good buddy ChatGPT. So it's a combination of some things. I really wanted to have this episode a little bit more researched and understandable. But things happen. We get thrown into stuff, and we've got to look at it. I'm trying to look at the numbers here really quick. Let's see here. Tesla did 97. Is it? Yeah. $97 billion in revenue. That's not too bad. That's about all the exotics combined together: Ferrari, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, McLaren, Bentley, Rolls-Royce. And I guess you could do Rolls-Royce because BMW Group, that BMW Group makes the top here. They're going to be 1, 2, 3. They're the sixth largest manufacturer, $1.68 billion. And Rolls-Royce accounts for $2.4 billion of that revenue. Average selling price of a Rolls-Royce in 2024 was $384,000. Average price of a BMW was $68,000. Just about as much as the average price of a Ford. I mean, I just don't get where Ford's numbers so high based on this table that I've put together and these projections that they've put out. Some trying to see if that's it. So I just wanted to throw out a couple of these numbers because The car world is large and big, but you don't have to sell a lot of cars if you sell them right. And we all know to buy a Ferrari, you have to buy a Ferrari before you can buy a Ferrari. That little catch-22 thing. I've got a story about a friend that had a car on order for Ferrari on order for a couple of years. And finally the dealer said, every time he called, well, it's probably 6-8 months off. And he got told this for a while. And he went over to the dealership check one day and talked to him, and they said, well, why don't you buy this car? And they pointed to another car that was in an odd color scheme. And he goes, well, I'm waiting for mine. And they go, if you buy this, yours will probably hurry up. So he bought a Ferrari that was ordered by somebody else who had to back out. And like 4 months later, this guy's custom ordered Ferrari showed up. So then he traded his Ferrari back to the dealership to get his car. And when you're dealing with exotics like this, there's a lot of advantages to exotics. One of the things, they don't depreciate like your Toyota, your Volkswagen, your Hyundai, your GM, your Ford, your BMW, your Mercedes, your Stellantis, your Tesla, which are basically everybody on this list except number four, which is BYD Group, which of course sells electric buses in this country, but due to trade regulations, and this isn't because of Mr. T, goes back to Mr. B and Mr. T and Mr. O. We don't really allow too many American cars. I think I've got that number in front of me. Tesla, 1.79 million, and Ferrari 13,000. I have 13,663. You have 13,752. And I'm talking to Jason here. He's commenting that Ferrari has sold approximately 222,000 cars since 1947. And sorry about that noise. But as I said a couple of weeks ago in my car and driver here, which might show up a little bit better, there is an article on the 1947 Spider Corsa. If we could talk. Corsa in this, talking about that first car Ferrari ever sold, and Tesla beat that in 1 year. Very electrifying stat, if I must say. But I'm just, I'm throwing these numbers fascinate me. I'm not as quick as I want to be in my head. As a matter of fact, Brandy's in the other room watching The Accountant right now, and it's a Ben Affleck movie and an action movie. But I love the accounting in there and the way he pops numbers, and it's all scripted. But there's some people that can do that, and it's one of the things. If you ever get a chance to listen to The Smoking Tire and Matt Farah, and Matt interviews his father, it's very interesting because his father can do interest rates and stuff in their head, and I really want to teach myself to do that. That if my investment's making 7.9%, or I'm going to pay 7.9%, in interest per year on a, say, $40,000 car loan. This is how much total interest will be paid, and this is what your payment will be. And some people can just do that in their head. I'm not quite there, but I can do a lot. And Jason loved my electrifying joke. Oh, I'm glad, like I said, I just had to throw together something so we could get a show out to you. I didn't think I was going to go over 15 minutes, but I'm good at rambling and good at talking. Brandy said that too. She goes, you go on, you do a show, and you can put something together. I wish I had this a little bit more organized, but maybe I'll put this chart up in the show notes when the audio podcast releases, and then you can look it up there and actually see some of these numbers. And we'll cite the source. Actually, ChatGPT compiled all of my information and made this nice little table for me. But let's see here. I was trying to think of looking at anybody else's exciting number, or I only have the top 10 car manufacturers, and then the top 6 what I called exotics: Bentley, Rolls-Royce, McLaren, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, and Ferrari. And then somehow Stellantis comes in at number 9. They're pretty large there. Based on cars sold, which is Stellantis is an interesting number because they do $204 billion at number 9, which you have to get. They do more revenue than on this list. They're $204 billion in revenue. Comes in number 3 on the list, but volume of cars sold is number 9, with an average selling price of $136,500. So maybe that, I'm assuming that's the Maserati contribution to this. I'm trying to think of what else. The Alfa Romeos, especially if you get into the Q ships there, you're looking at, you're getting closer to that 6-figure number. But I would think they sell a hell of a lot of Challengers and, 6-cylinder Challengers, not Hellcats and such. Which, by the way, where was I was driving somewhere the other day, and I swear I saw a convertible Challenger on a used car lot. I need to stop by and take a look at that. But I don't know much else to really talk. I don't want to babble too much. I want to respect your time. I did throw out a bunch of numbers there. Like I said, it's tough, but I'm fascinated by numbers. I love it when people start throwing numbers at me like that. So we'll be back next week. Should be all 3 of us from what I know. We don't know. I don't know for sure, but I do thank those of you that took a little bit of time to join me, get all these numbers spewed at you. Not really exciting. Trying to think of any exciting car news that I heard. Oh, the Yugo's coming back. Probably not to the United States. Is it a car we wanted? I don't know. And everybody criticizes the Yugo. And here's just a little sidetrack story about the Yugo. I never thought they were ugly cars, never really wanted one. $39.90 when they were originally sold. But everybody forgets that there was this gentleman named David E. Davis Jr. Used to be editor of Car and Driver, started a little automobile magazine called Automobile Magazine. And he used to write a column in the back of that magazine. And one of the columns was about a Yugo GVX that he bought his daughter for her car when she was 16 or 18 years old, something like that. So even David E. Davis Jr., legendary car journalist, bought a Yugo GVX. So there might have been something to him other than the jokes. And every time I go to Fort Lauderdale, the friend I visit down there, there's always a Yugo convertible in the parking lot of his condo, right where the cruise ships and that take off. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, so maybe that Yugo's gone. But yeah, Yugo's coming back. Let's see what we get there. Let me get Jason's last question here. Do I think BMW or Audi has contributed to the success of Lamborghini or Rolls-Royce? What was the statistic I heard on that? Definitely BMW has helped Rolls-Royce. I don't think Rolls-Royce would exist without BMW. But I was looking at a Rolls-Royce. Oh, it's me and my YouTube. Who is it? Hoovy. He just bought this 68 Rolls-Royce or something. And I really got thinking, Rolls-Royces just aren't, to me, have never been that attractive of a car, especially when they became cars after 1960 and merged with Bentley and all that stuff in the mid 60s. if BMW wouldn't have come along at the same time Volkswagen Group came along to save Bentley, which was an interesting purchase in itself, I do not think Rolls-Royce would have survived. And because of how intertwined they were, I don't think Bentley would have survived. Those would have been gone. So Volkswagen Group saved both of those. Audi contributing to the success of Lamborghini, I do not believe, but Audi is part of Volkswagen Group. And I think where the gel of that comes into is Audi has benefited from the Lamborghini side of things, because Volkswagen Group can invest money into building these Lamborghinis and improving the Lamborghinis, because the Murcielago was a huge advance over the Diablos. The Huracan came out, not the Huracan, the Gallardo came out. The 04s are junk. The 05 Gallardos, when they started to get it right, and I think that's the one that was the first Lamborghini that was almost entirely done by Volkswagen Group. That 04 was some of the Stragle stuff. And when by the time we got to the Aventador and the Huracan, and now what are we at? The Revolto just came out, and I can't remember what the Huracan replacement's name is. Those cars have benefited so much from the German ownership and the German engineering, and the feedback that comes from, remember, Porsche's part of this group too, comes back from Porsche, and because the Lamborghini Urus is basically a Porsche Cayenne rebodied, or an Audi. I get all the Audis. I want to say S8, but whatever, the Q8 SUV, they all kind of share the same platform. And when you can share the same platform and some tweaking, and you're just paying for what level of luxury or what level of sport you want and what you're buying there. And then, of course, Audi has definitely benefited by selling their luxury Huracan in the form of the Audi R8. But if we look at the Audi R8, I think that synergy is what General Motors always wanted out of the Cadillac XLR and the Corvette. The Cadillac is supposed to be the Audi of the the Audi R8 of the Corvette world, but Volkswagen Group put it together right, and hopefully we will see the return of the R8 in the next couple of years. That's a rumor happening. But in answer to Jason's question, since I always have these long answers, yes, BMW, Audi / Volkswagen Group has definitely contributed to the success of Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, and Bentley. Without Volkswagen Group and BMW purchasing these manufacturers, they probably would have died on the vine. You would have never seen Lamborghini selling 10,000 units a year in the old, or the Lamborghini of old. I even remember looking at a friend's Gallardo probably back in 08 or 09, and I still couldn't believe the quality of the welds. They were atrocious. I don't weld that good, but I probably could have been a welder for Lamborghini. Really scared me. And then you compare it to some of my friends' later models, SVJs and SVs and that. And you can see where the quality has come in, the robotics has come in, the production lines have come in. So Jason got me to extend this to almost 30 minutes tonight. So, but with that, I'm going to have to say goodnight to everybody, or good afternoon, or good morning, whatever generic time of the day you are listening or watching this. And join the three of us next week. We might relive the past. We might change up that topic. Don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in the car world in the next week. But as I always say, now you know, time to get off your ass, go burn some gas, because John is